The following program was produced by an independent community producer. The opinions expressed do not necessarily reflect those of the ECAT staff or board of directors.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, residents of Easton, this is Bill Ames, the co-host of the Film Connection, which we're proud to say is now in its 22nd year on ECAT. We like to interview people who live in Easton and surrounding towns and who are involved in the productions of media, films, television shows, whatever, acting, and get their views of their profession. So that is our, so to speak, that is our niche. And we have had many interesting shows, and hopefully you all had a chance to see some of them. But at this point, it's my great pleasure to introduce my co-host, the brains of it all, Priscilla Almquist Olsen.
Oh, aren't you sweet? Oh, thank you,
Well,
William.
It is true, Priscilla.
Yeah, it's great to be here. Even greater to have as our guest Zachary Levenson of Canton and Canton High School, the prodigy of Ed McDonough, the famous media instructor that we have interviewed, Bill, you and I, and he has just been fabulous in his recommendations of you, Zach, and so we're delighted to have you here as our guest today.
Thank you so much for having me. Very excited to be here.
Good, yeah. Well, tell us a little bit about your background. And we know you're from Canton, but there's got to be more to it than that.
Yeah. So born and raised in Canton, graduated in 2012, ran track and cross country at Canton High. My interest in video production, my parents got me a little video camera when I was probably in middle school, and I came into the Canton High, and I heard that there was a TV production class, and I was super excited because I always had some sort of interest. I didn't know, what my future was going to be in it, but I took the TV production class led by the famous Ed McDonough, and that's where my passion really started, because he's a very passionate teacher, and he really helped me guide my way into my future.
We've had him on this show, Ed McDonough.
Oh, he's
an old friend of ours.
He is, and it was one of the best interviews because Zach, how passionate he is and how articulate he is, and he just exudes joy, happiness around the film industry.
Plus, he's a born networker. So.
Yes, he is, and he also is so proud of all his students, and he gave us a nice long list of people to interview. So we're not done yet just with you, Zachary Levenson. We've got some more people on the.
All right.
Absolutely. Now, for example, recently we interviewed Michael Noon.
Mm-hmm.
Is that his name?
Yep.
And you know him. He's a bit younger than you.
Yep.
Right. But he's had a very interesting career. You've been concentrating primarily on the wedding business here, which we're going to get into.
That's
but
right.
Talk about Michael Noon a little bit before we get to that.
Yeah, Mike was sort of right after. Keep going. Mike was right after my time at Canton High. I was doing an interview, an internship with Easton's Kevin Friend. So I was doing my internship with Kevin, and Mike was doing his internship with Kevin as a high schooler, and that's where I first met Mike. And right away I could tell Mike's really, really good with people. He's a real go-getter. He's really smart. He's really witty. And I graduated college, and then didn't really hear from him for a while. And then several years later, I hear about all these amazing things he's doing. He's traveling around the world. He's putting himself out there. He's filming. It's something I wish I had done. But he really opened his mind to all these creative possibilities I never, ever would have thought of. And he's just been doing amazing things, traveling around Africa and, India, and just has all these amazing projects. And he's got such a bright future. He's really been killing it.
Well, but there you are in Canton making real money doing wedding videos. So tell us a bit about that. How did you get into that particular niche?
Yeah, I when I graduated Fitchburg State. That's where I went to college. I majored in the film production program there. I really wasn't sure what I wanted to do when I graduated. I had a few bad experiences in the film industry, and I decided that was not my path. So my first real job right out of college was working at a ski resort, doing the video, reports there and shooting little fun marketing videos, and that was kind of a nice taste into what I would be doing in the future. I really enjoyed working at the ski area, but when I came back after one season, I shot one wedding and it came out good. It was for my friend's sister, and she put it out there out on the the social networking sites for weddings, and I got really good feedback. A bunch of people booked me, and I was never planning on doing weddings, and the money's good, and weddings are very consistent work. So I was like, you know what? Why not just keep going for it? So that was probably 6 or 7 years ago, and I've been doing it since, and it's been going really well.
You do corporate too, right?
Well,
I do.
let me just ask a question about the weddings.
Yes.
So what did you learn from videotaping weddings that has helped you in doing documentaries and corporate work?
That's a good question. I think some of my biggest takeaways from shooting weddings is that I've applied to shooting documentaries is just I've learned how to be able to kind of be in the background and develop that skill of being in the background, having my camera going, being a fly on the wall, learning to capture the moments. But I think also one of the biggest things that I've learned from weddings is having to learn my camera like the back of my hand. Like, things happen so fast, and if I want to switch camera settings during a wedding, I have to do it just like that. And I applied that to my first feature documentary I shot, and I will definitely say being able to think quick on my feet and knowing the camera inside and out, that was a really big skill I've learned while shooting all these weddings, for sure.
Good.
Mm-hmm.
Well, one of the good things about shooting weddings is I've done a few of myself over the years as an amateur, is the fact that, and one I'm thinking of is one I did about 25 years ago. My cousin, Minnie Ames, she got married here. And I happened to be looking at it the other day, and my gosh, there were all these people who are no longer with us.
Mm-hmm.
And there they were, all in their 25 years ago garb and looking healthy and struggling back, all great friends of the family. And I was very moved by that.
Yep.
I found it, I think that clearly you're shooting for the future generations when you do weddings, as well as for the current. So there's mom and dad.
Mm-hmm.
And everybody getting a little loaded at the reception and something like that, having a wonderful time, singing the old college songs.
But the best part of videotaping is something you just mentioned. People can see those who have departed when they were alive and well, and their personalities were coming through. So future generations, a grandchild or a great-grandchild says, "Oh, look at that. That's one of my ancestors. And she looks a lot like me."
Yep.
And look at her personality. She sounds just like my mother. Well, so that genetic connection as well as that personal connection really is important, because when I got married so many years ago, there was no videoing anything, and it was all still photographs.
Yep.
So, times have changed, but in a good way, because you're capturing people who are alive, will always be alive on tape, even though they won't be alive in reality. They'll always be there on tape.
Absolutely. And the video quality these days is so crystal sharp. Back, even I know a few people who used to shoot weddings on film. They would have like a big battery pack and a big light, and going from there to camcorders to tape. Even, back then it was really hard to, you said how, family would be like, "Wow, they look like me." Well, now it's like the quality is so crystal clear and so sharp now. In like 50 years, they're really going to be able to see like really how everyone looked and sounded, and because the camera gear is getting so good these days. So that's definitely an advantage. And the families, more people are starting to appreciate having the videos at their weddings. A lot of people were kind of pushing back at it for a long time, but now clients are a lot more appreciative of having it.
Because this, as we were talking about earlier, this has been a big competitor.
Yep.
So it's driven out most of your competition, right?
Yeah.
So you're sort of the last man standing.
Yep.
And a lot of so it's your timing was good.
Yep.
And sticking to it.
Absolutely. And it's funny because the majority, all the videographers, they still shooting on big cameras, but some people are trying to push in with the phones and trying to replace that. I don't think it's happening anytime soon, but there's a new business now in the world of our social media called content creators, which is different from what we're doing. So, it's interesting. Brides are hiring people called content creators that just bring in their phone and they're just creating TikToks or social media videos on their phone. It's totally separate from what I'm doing, and it's a new, totally different business. And I've done a few, and it's interesting. Like they're just following and doing what I'm doing, except they have these, these clever, TikTok trends that people do, and they just, brides and grooms, they want that to be on social media, and it's getting pretty popular.
Some people viewing this may not really know what TikTok is, other than it's a social media platform.
Yeah.
Why is it different from Facebook or Instagram or just for our education?
Yeah, it's I've been trying to figure that out myself, because it's basically Instagram, but it's only for video. People just post video. I don't know why it blew up. Like there's another app that is no longer with us called Vine, and it's basically the same thing as TikTok, except you just posted 7-second videos. Except for TikTok, you can post, I don't know what the limit is, but it's much longer. And for some reason, this TikTok app, the way they marketed it blew up, and now it's huge, and it's a huge market, and people can make money and do it full time and make careers out of it. So it's just Instagram, but just video, and I'm sure there's a lot more to it, but I'm not super deep into TikTok.
Well, that Vine, they were real pioneers in Vine,
Big
right?
time.
That's where they went to YouTube and all these other. Vine was the first mover in all this stuff, and it didn't really work out or whatever, even though it got big. So it spawned.
Exactly.
The people who were in Vine sort of got the playbook and then went out on their own to start YouTube and some of these other sites.
Exactly.
Pretty impressive,
Well, I remember the days of the camcorder.
Yep.
And this huge thing. And I remember putting it on my shoulder, and having to, at the same time, balance that camera and then shoot and talk.
Yep.
Those are three things one had to do.
Yep.
All simultaneously. And I remember my daughter and I went to visit family in Sweden when she was 10, and then she went off with a cousin who had 3 kids her age, and she brought the camcorder with her. And she did a really good job. She was 10 years old, and this heavy thing, and she was a little tyke, really diminutive 10-year-old. And she did a great job videotaping their lives from morning to dusk. She's out there, and people were talking. Of course, the 11-year-old, the 9-year-old spoke very good English, of course, and so it was all in English. But amazing that camcorder did a good job.
Yep.
Now, it doesn't compare today with the cameras that you have in terms of quality.
Yep.
Even Bill's phone he's holding up here, that is incredible quality.
Yep.
But the camcorder was so universally accepted.
Yep.
And it was a family thing.
Mm-hmm.
And so my ex-husband, he took a lot of Christmas family gatherings with that.
Mm-hmm.
So my son then did something I can't do. He digitized them.
Mm-hmm.
And what was that? Well, they're VHS tapes.
You put them in a box and send them off
So-
Kodak. Yeah.
No. You take an old VHS
Play deck.
play deck. You put the VHS in there, and he got it at Staples. I think a program that's in the computer, and on my laptop, that sets it all up and transfers what's on the VHS tape to my digital.
Yep.
So I said to Eric, where are all those wonderful films? He says, Mom, they're in the cloud. I said, oh, where's that?
Yeah.
Where is that cloud?
So you learned something that day.
I did. And so he has preserved these because some of these VHS tapes are 30, 40 years old.
Mm-hmm.
And they're not going to going to
Yeah.
last. So for those people out there who are sending their tapes away, like Bill Ames here,
Spending a
and
fortune
spending
doing
a
it.
fortune to get them on discs or digitized, you can do it yourself.
Go to Staples.
Go to Staples. Go online to Amazon. Get this thing that you put in. I think it's a disc you put in, and it does it all for you.
Yep.
Yeah.
Well, picking up on your thought, that one of the, before videotape, there was what they called 16 millimeter.
Oh yes,
And
that was your tape.
That right, and my grandmother, back in the 1920s, when 16 millimeter came out, it was like this. It was such a revolution because they could do sound.
Oh yeah.
They hadn't done. This came out before Super 8.
Mm-hmm.
Super 8 was sort of a downsized version. But my grandmother would go to she was one of the first wedding photographers in the country, probably, because she'd go to family weddings. And she went around, and they were all her friends, and they were in their, 40s or 50s. And they'd all wave. Blanche Ames is in one of them. And,
Really?
Oh yeah, all the old names. And she had about 3 of these weddings.
And you have the tapes?
I do.
Have you preserved them?
Yeah. And they're edited, she edited them down clearly a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
So very valuable family things. The problem is that there's no titles, because I know who my grandfather was, because I knew him, and Blanche, and some of these others. But unfortunately, there are no titles to all these other people who look very interesting.
Okay, but Zach, couldn't Bill stop the camera and somehow put the names of the people under the people?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, like if you digitized it, you digitized it, put the titles in everyone. Yeah, absolutely. Then you got to go through the expensive process of
okay, Bill, that's your mission.
Right. Right.
No, you should do that.
I'll get on it this afternoon.
Soon.
But that was something that got me interested in my little filming journey.
Your grandmother.
My grandmother, yeah, she left a whole case of these videos, and nobody ever looked at them until I opened the case and started looking through them.
That's cool.
Was that your mother's mother or your father's mother?
My father's mother.
Oh yeah.
Right here in Easton. A lot of them were shot here in Easton, the various weddings. So that got me involved with 16 millimeter, because as I was saying before, I started with Super 8. I was trying to film a lot about the history of my family in Easton and all that stuff, because I figured, everything's going to be a big development someday, which was not the case, but, So I started with that, and then I got worried that there was no sound.
Right.
So I went up to 16 millimeter, and 16 millimeter is very, very expensive, because you have to buy the actual film, which was those days was about $10 for a roll of 50 yards of film or feet or whatever they called it, and that added up pretty fast. So the good side of that was you had to be very aware when you shot that you couldn't just let it rip.
You don't want to waste film
like you do today,
right?
And fix it in post.
Yeah.
But did you have any experience with 16 millimeter, direct or indirect, in your evolution?
So when I was a freshman at Fitchburg State, the first camera class we do is they put us on a 16 millimeter Bolex camera, and I think that's really just to teach us like the absolute core basics of filmmaking. And I think my freshman year I wasn't the most confident, so I didn't do a lot of hands-on work with the Bolex. I was really nervous. I really just didn't process the information on how to load it and expose it. So I didn't work a lot with it. But then by the end of my senior year, I was a little more confident working with cameras. So then I actually saw a Bolex for sale at an antique show, and it was working. So I bought it, and I was going to buy the film and try to shoot it, but I just didn't have enough money. Like you said, the process of buying film is expensive and digitizing it is expensive, so I can edit it on my computer. So I didn't end up shooting with it after I bought it, and I eventually sold it, but it was a pretty good decoration for a while. But I definitely appreciate the process, and it's really a good skill for new filmmakers to learn.
Yeah, I think ECAT has some Bolex cameras that people have donated in the old days.
Yeah.
As I was saying, I was shooting this film, and I was trying to go to digital.
Yeah.
And I was a little nervous about going to digital because it's complicated.
Yep.
You know, I mean, you got to actually sit in the chair and figure it out. Whereas a Bolex, it's very different. I mean, you just have to intuit the amount of light and all that sort of stuff, and you can't really fix it in post like you can now. Anything.
Yep.
So as I said, I finally was filming this thing, and I had a digital too, and I finally just threw the Bolex in the water. And should you go to England to the River Brue someday, it can be found this day rotting away 30 years later. So, but anyhow, that's just an anecdote.
Yeah.
But it was a fun little memory for me.
Absolutely.
You know, I had enough of this Bolex and all the money because digital was cheap.
Yep.
I said, how many hundreds of dollars had I spent on those films?
Yep.
So
Absolutely.
made it easy.
Yep.
Made it easy.
Absolutely.
But they say, as we were talking about Fitchburg State and whatever, a lot of film schools do emphasize what you went through, which was the basics of that.
Yep.
Teaches you economy,
Absolutely.
intuitive sort of, is this the right light and all that stuff or not,
Yep.
you know.
Yep. Absolutely.
So tell us a little bit about your journey from Pittsburgh State. You were up there in the ski area, and you started. That's where the wedding thing came. I mean, so much happens by happenstance, doesn't it?
Yep.
You know, it's just taking advantage of an opportunity that just suddenly rises up in front of you, and there it is, and then you make the most of it, and you have certainly done that. Now, you were telling us you have at least 60 weddings a year.
Yeah.
And that is amazing. And what is this about 3 cameras?
Yeah. So
Tell us about that.
yeah. So you know, when I shoot weddings, I bring a lot of cameras. Most of the day, the way I usually shoot my weddings, is I'll start with the bride and groom from the morning, and I'll stick with them, you know, until the end of the day when everyone's dancing and having fun. And I'll just get shots of them getting ready, having fun. If they do a first look, I'll set that up and do a few cameras, you know, getting both reactions. Then we get to the ceremony, and I'll have, you know, 3 cameras, one on the bride, one on the groom, one, you know, a big wide shot. And I edit it like, you know, like you would edit a show like this. I'll cut in between because 60 weddings is a lot. It's a lot to edit, so you want to edit it in the most time efficient way. And so I set it up like a multicam TV shoot, and I'll watch everything. And if I notice that bride has a good reaction, I'll cut to them. Groom has a good reaction, I'll cut to them. If both of them are giving me something good, I'll cut to the wide shot of them. And that's really how I approach shooting the weddings. Is I try to just have as many angles as possible. It gives me a more opportunity to catch everyone's good reactions. And that's usually how I approach shooting the weddings. And also, of course, being, you know, like I said, not being in the way. I try to be as unobtrusive as possible during the day of.
But 3 cameras, though, physically, is there a distant camera set up on a tripod?
Yep.
And then you have the close-up, and there's a medium. So you have 2 different angles fixed.
Exactly. So
right.
3 angles fixed. So 1 down the middle, 2 cross shooting their reactions. And I have 1 camera. You know, when everyone's walking down the aisle, I'll stand in front, get everyone walking down. Then as the ceremony is going on, I'll take, you know, my gimbal, which is it's a camera device. I put the camera on it, and allows me to run around and get smooth shots without the camera shaking. And I'll use that to get a bunch of different you know, cutaway angles, some artsy cutaway shots. Everyone really likes those.
Well, I told you the story about my monopod. You should try that. I mean, if you want to, you know, as I was saying, I put it when I did some wedding videos, and I just for friends and whatever, and I had the monopod rather than tripod. So I put them on the monopod like that, trying to keep it steady. That's the whole purpose of the monopod. But then it suddenly occurred to me that why don't I extend the monopod all the way and hold the very end and put it way up like that? So I had some nice aerial shots. It was great variety. You know?
I can screw in the gimbal to the monopod in extended, so I've got a super smooth, and I can walk around and I'll have perfectly smooth footage.
Yeah.
I can do that too.
Yeah.
Yep. That's why video production is always fun, because there's so many different ways you can like rig up cameras and get interesting shots. Like everyone's always making these new camera devices and camera rigs and this and that, and it's fun to try to put things together to get unique shots. So that's something that's also pretty fun that I like trying to do on my off time.
So you've done some documentaries too.
Mm-hmm.
So that's very demanding, a documentary, right? I mean,
Yeah. So I shot this one documentary over the course of like 5 years. I had met this guy he's still my friend to this day, and he was training German Shepherds for the military and police. And about 5 years ago, he took in a dog that was actually retiring from military and police. That was the first one he had taken in, and he noticed that this dog was suffering, and he diagnosed the dog with canine PTSD, from the trauma that the dog endured from working. And so it's a story of healing, because my friend also suffers from childhood PTSD. So it's a story of them healing each other through this journey.
Oh my God, what a wonderful movie.
Yeah, it's called
Wonderful.
Healing Dakota. It's on...
What's it called?
Healing Dakota.
I like that.
It's on Amazon. It's on Amazon, Apple TV, Roku. We just got on there a few months ago. So you should check it out. It came out really good.
I like that.
Yeah.
Healing Dakota, everybody.
Healing Dakota. Check it out.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
So what was you were obviously the cinematographer.
I was a
and the
cinematographer,
edited it
yes.
and everything.
I did not edit it. I think that's an interesting thing to talk about. I think I learned through this process that making a documentary is really hard. Making a documentary, I feel like, was like kind of like writing a book. You're like writing a story, and then piecing it together is really hard. And so it was a long journey, because we were learning. I don't consider myself a documentary editor. That's just like a totally different skill in itself. And it was about a 5-year process. So I was just the cinematographer. I did try to edit it at first. But then we realized we just needed more experienced hands. So it was definitely a process, because my friend, he was also the director. Even though he was the subject, he was also the director. And at that time, I kind of considered myself not an amateur, but it was my first documentary, and I was still learning on the way. So it was a really great experience. I learned a lot. That was my first documentary I shot, and it was a feature. And it was a very powerful story, and I learned a lot about the whole filmmaking process, and really happy. We didn't sell it to Netflix, but we're extremely proud of how it turned out.
Well, it's interesting. Speaking of documentaries, look at Ken Burns. Civil War, baseball, and some of his documentaries just a languid series of pictures and whatever. He doesn't go boom, boom, boom like that, because he has the sort of the music and. I guess the content of the pictures being Civil War grabs your attention. So he doesn't have to worry about whether you're keeping entertained or not as much.
Well, look at Gino.
Gino D'Agostino, our friend, yeah.
Yeah. All right. I mean, he spent years making documentaries for WGBH.
Medical documentaries.
Medical?
Well, when a company introduced a new intuitive surgical device or something, that's when they called Gino. Plus, he did others too.
He did others, yeah. He wasn't just
no
doing medical ones, no. But he was a master. And remember when he went up to be on the Arctic?
Greeley.
Wow.
Remember that one?
Oh yeah, gosh.
Oh!
That was this guy Greeley, who was a army guy in 1920s or something like that, and he got stranded with his crew up in the Arctic.
Wow.
And he interviewed this fellow in New Hampshire who was on the expedition. And there's all sorts of suggestions of cannibalism. And gave it a little bit of an edge.
Wow.
You know what I mean?
That's good TV right there. That's good documentary.
Because they were up against it. Yeah. Totally. And people died. So I don't think they killed anybody.
Yeah.
Do it.
Wow.
So that gave it. So they interviewed the relatives. So they're at a dining room table, Sunday lunch or something, in this wonderful setting. The guy must have done very well for himself, but had this beautiful barn, and there was this setting, and the fellow who had been on Greeley's expedition was at one end of the table, and Gino interviews one of his teenage sons. Says, "Yeah, well, we're very careful what we say to my father, about the Greeley expedition, and he's never mentioned it, needless to say, because, I guess he would have plausible denial, but still, it would be very edgy. But it was great cinema. It was great video, because Gino used that to vet the subject of cannibalism,
right,
rather than just mentioning it in the narration,
right,
as he went along. So,
yeah, it's documentaries are more powerful when the director is creative in that way, and not being just head on, like a train wreck. It's
well,
subtle.
he had to change the beginning of that documentary. I remember it was somebody driving along in a truck talking about, grandpa or whatever it was. It was Greeley, and so Gino had to sort of get right to the point. Here we are in the Arctic and whatever, and then go back to the truck, because the truck, it was too much of an abstraction. People didn't really get it, But once they saw the Arctic and the ice flows and the cabin, I think that was the first 5 minutes.
Right.
Then they went back to the truck. It was very effective,
Right.
in that sense. But I think the benefit Gino had was he got other people's opinions and took them seriously. So he had focus groups. And that's what they told him. They said, it's needs more punch.
That's when you're a serious documentary filmmaker, and filmmakers, when you do those sort of focus groups, that's when you're taking it seriously. We didn't have a chance to do that, but that's good for him. I'm curious. I want to see this. I want to see it.
What's the name of it?
What's the name of it?
Well, it's about. I talk to Gino pretty often. I'll get it.
Okay, you can send it to both of us.
No, it's he did it because his client was a man in New Hampshire who had made a lot of money in. How when you have a colonoscopy you have to drink the liquid. That's what he did to his brilliant success.
Okay.
So he hired Gino because he knew about Greeley. And he might have been related to Greeley for all I know. So that's the backstory of why this is such a well-funded expedition for Gino.
So having had that experience, Zach, do you think of yourself as doing documentaries on a permanent basis in the future?
To be able to get paid to do documentaries full time, that's a dream right there. That's a hard gig to land. I think realistically, I would continue the path that I'm going on now. Continue to shoot weddings, be able to purchase gear to shoot, high quality documentaries. And I think I'm gonna try to continue to shoot, passion projects. I want to find subjects that I'm passionate about, and I'm gonna shoot documentaries and submit them into film festivals. And we'll see what they go from there. Maybe somebody wants to hire me. We'll see. We'll see. That would be the dream.
Right. And so what types of topics would you be interested in? I know you like to go camping and fishing, and so would a documentary on the wild,
Vermont.
I just think conservation is really interesting. I mean, if I'm going to be realistic, if anybody's going to hire me, I will film it, because I'm a freelancer, so I need the work. But I mean, I think a dream documentary job, would be like a documentary, National Geographic shoot, like just conservation and nature. And, I love fishing. I started doing, last winter, I tried to start doing a mini series on my YouTube channel, and I was interviewing, local New England fly fishing guides, how they got, started, talking to them a little bit about conservation and, how they got into all this. And I thought that was really fun. So I think I would shoot passion projects, for sure, and anything.
Because
outdoors.
If I may, you have a regular cash flow from your basic business, so that gives you the ability to do it
Exactly.
financially and mentally. You're not going to be panicked that you have to make a lot of money making that film.
Exactly. It's definitely it doesn't put a lot of stress on me, which is nice.
Yeah.
Because that can be pretty stressful to put everything into one passion project, not have it work out. That can be pretty scary.
So you got married recently, I heard. Yeah. So is there a video of that? Video?
It's funny you say that because we did a cross-country trip. We kind of drove the outline of the whole country. I have this small compact camper that goes in the back of my truck, and it's got a pop-up tent. And it was a really fun experience. My original plan was to, be YouTubers for this and kind of document our entire trip. But it was our first long trip like that. We usually normally do like 4-day trips. And I learned, the trip was so much fun. We saw so much, but actually, filming this trip was a whole lot more work than I thought. Because, the goal was to not spend money on places to sleep, and it was to, camp in the wilderness. So every single day we had to put all of our energy into waking up, cooking, driving. And by the time it's like 5 or 6 o'clock, we have to focus on finding a place to sleep that's safe. We have to make the food. We have to set up camp. And I think I figured out I wanted to be more present in the trip and not be focusing on the camera and making sure everyone's fed and we have a place to sleep. So I did do some short Instagram videos. I got some really nice shots that I'm going to use for my reel, but I didn't really do like a 2-month, one video a week, or one video per state. But I'm glad I focused on being in the moment. Yeah.
Yeah, that was in the moment.
In the moment.
It's a nice phrase, no question about it.
Well, I know on Channel 2 and Channel 44, which are WGBH channels, they have a lot of these documentaries or shows with veterinarians who specialize in animals in the wild. And quite a number of them. And they're really interesting, fascinating. And the photography is fabulous. And you have these animals, you get to see them naturally in their natural behavior state, not just jumping around, but I mean, lying around and doing whatever they do. But there are also very interesting ones where there are injured animals and the veterinarians take them and help them to heal. They're often placed in sanctuaries. Have you ever been to a sanctuary? And if so, is that something you might like to
Which sanctuary is this?
Just any sanctuary in general?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, there's sanctuaries all over the United States and in Canada.
Colorado, there's a big one.
There's
out
a
there.
big one in Colorado.
I saw it
there?
60 Minutes.
Yep.
Over the weekend. Amazing story. This guy went to Africa, or
Oh,
Puerto Rico.
I saw that too.
Puerto Rico.
Yeah.
Yes.
It was
And he was kissing lions and tigers and lying down, and they were on top of him like you would have a dog licking his face.
Well, that was after he'd fed them for a while, I'm sure. He said he didn't want to mess with them.
Didn't want to go in while they were hungry. Yeah.
When they're at first, when they got him out of Puerto Rico.
Yeah.
But he did say he had a huge bite on an arm that he almost lost.
Yeah, he said he said it took him trying to learn the lessons of what not to do.
Exactly. Right. But that was a fascinating thing. But do you have any interest in that? Because you obviously are an outdoors guy.
Yeah, I think that'd be really, really fun to do. But I've learned that's a very, specific job. I never would just be offered that. I think I've learned if you want to break into being like a National Geographic, filmmaker, you really have to show dedication to like that subject and go out on your own. And I think that's true. I think people who get hired, like, filmmakers who get hired for these wild, expeditions, they go out beforehand and they show that they're passionate. They go out and they shoot on their own because they're passionate about it. So that's what I've been trying to do in New England, is to go out and shoot, fly fishermen, fishing topics, hopefully some, maybe some, fishing documentary, filmmaker sees that, and I'm just putting it out there, even if it's just on a YouTube channel. I'm really trying to shoot these mini documentaries so I can show that I have an interest, so that someday maybe somebody will see that I do have a passion for it and I could get hired for it. We'll see.
So what is the chain that you use in order to find possible jobs or opportunities or people? I mean, there must be sites where they're saying, we want to hire so many people to do a documentary on X, Y, and Z.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, there's a few websites that I use to get jobs. There's like a site called Production Hub. That's a big one. That's been around forever. That people post jobs that can be anything. It could be, hey, we're going to, Egypt, even though usually they're looking for local people, so they don't have to fly you out. But I've gotten, corporate jobs from Production Hub. There's a few other websites called like Story Hunter. I get corporate jobs from there, and then lots of word of mouth from people that I've worked with or went to school with. That's usually how I get the majority of my work.
Word of mouth, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, because you're tried and true.
Yep, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yep.
Wow. So if you had to choose a country, where would you like to go first?
Oof, that's a good one. Because I know I've been to Iceland. I think Iceland's the most amazing place I've been so far. But I think new places. I mean, New Zealand is number one on my list because I'm a big Lord of the Rings nerd. So I would really like to go to New Zealand, and explore that. Where else? Greece looks amazing. I mean, I really want to go to Alaska. There's just so many places to see. Yeah.
And they're all places with great outdoors.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Great fly fish. World's best fly fishing in New Zealand. So if I ever get to go, I'm going to make a fly fishing trip out of it.
Well, I'm going in November.
You're going to New Zealand in November?
Yes.
So
December.
Just
My
jealous.
son's going in November to
Yep.
prep for a movie that he's producing in January in New Zealand. It's called Free Fall.
Nice.
And if you look up the, Hollywood Reporter or whatever those stations are,
Yeah.
then they'll talk about that. Yeah.
Oof.
And it's interesting because the actor, his first name is Zachary.
Yep. Okay.
How do you like that?
I like
That's
it.
good.
Zachary Levi. Do you know him?
That name sounds so familiar.
Well, okay. What was that movie? Kazam sounds like. It was that big, action. Where they have these like.
Oh, I feel like I know what you're talking
like
about.
Spider-Man and all those other Marvel
Yeah.
people. Well, this guy was Pazam. Sounds like Pazam.
Okay.
I don't know.
Something
and he was
like
dressed
that,
in
yeah.
one of those. You know how they have,
Yeah.
have these outfits and
Yeah.
yeah. And then if you watch Mrs. Maisel,
Which I am.
he's a Mrs. Maisel fan. In the first season, there was a doctor that she met at the camp in the Catskills or the Adirondacks.
I haven't got there yet.
Oh, okay. And he's tall, and that's Zachary. Now, I don't know what his last name was, but his first two names were Zachary Levi. So Levi is his middle name. So
Okay.
he cut off the last name.
Okay.
So, but he's starring in it. And,
Nice.
and it's about a father-daughter rock climbing thing in
Oh,
New
cool.
Zealand.
Oh, I'm so jealous. It's gonna be fun. You're
Well,
gonna have fun.
so I said, when can I come, Eric? And he said, oh, come December because then I'll have time to show you around.
And the
Yeah.
weather's good.
The weather's
Yeah.
good. Yep, that's summer there. Winter
Yeah.
is their summer.
So
Yeah.
I know. So
Mhm.
I got my friend Johnny Renee. You've met her.
Yeah.
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 And so she's scheduled to go with me.
Wow.
So it's going to be fun.
They're very jealous. That's
Yeah.
gonna be fun.
Yeah, but it's a long trip. I
Long trip, long flight.
I've
Yeah.
been to Australia and oh my God, I thought I would never get there. And it's all,
Right, first couple of days, it's tough.
yeah, but I mean, you're going for 17 hours. This is from LA, 17
Mhm.
hours without landing. And you're saying, do you think there's enough gas in this
Yep.
plane?
I relate
Are we gonna make it?
That's what you ask the person next to you?
that. That's just always the thoughts going through her head when we're flying. I relate.
But it was one of those gigantic planes.
Yeah.
Is it Qantas? Is that
Yeah.
what it sounds like?
Yeah, 747 probably.
Yeah, big.
Yeah. Well, I went, speaking now that we're on the subject, I went to New Zealand once and I got a cold on the plane, because
No.
it happens to people.
Yeah.
Mm.
Just wrecked my trip.
Ugh.
Wrecked my trip.
Well, we got to wear masks on the plane now.
Yeah.
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 Well, I hope you can find a connection to the Hockomock Film Festival, which has been very successful
Mhm.
since you were prior winner.
Yep.
Apparently this year they got 65
Wow.
entries
Yes.
and from 9 schools in the Hockomock.
And Canton High won in the 3 categories: first place, And then in another category, second place.
I bet Ed was very proud.
And guess who got the second place? It was Mike Noon's kid brother.
Whoa,
Is
that's
that
so
right?
funny.
Wasn't it John? John Noon?
I don't know.
Oh yeah, where
I-
were you?
for
You
him.
didn't even come.
Well, I had my family reunion.
That's right, the family reunion that happens once in every 10 years.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, I organized it, so I boo me.
It was
But I
a-
was so proud that it was there.
I
you
know, and it was great. We had a wonderful turnout at the Oaks Ames Memorial Hall,
Yeah.
and Mark
That's a good-
Cadoza and I emceed it together. It was fun,
Yeah.
and the kids really were really great, and parents were so proud.
Yeah.
You know? Yeah.
That's very exciting. Yeah, I think that was such a fun experience in the past. 'Cause I never seen I never been to a film festival. I didn't really understand how it worked, and to have like my little film I had, my first one I think I did, my first project that got into the festival was a music video, and the second one I think I did when I was in college. And the first time it was just really fun to be able to see our project like on the big screen, you know, with an
Yeah.
audience. It was very exciting. I think it also kind of pushes competition, which is always good, a healthy competition.
Well,
So
the-
yeah, it's a really great thing to keep going.
Well, the cash prizes help a lot. I mean,
Big
to
time.
be 15 years old and get paid for your art
That's huge.
is
Yeah,
is
and
a
it's
big incentive.
$500
Yeah.
for the first place.
That's great.
Yeah.
It is, yeah.
Yeah, so that makes
And plus wonderful little
Yep.
whatevers, award things.
little things.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah.
And so keep in mind, ECAT's always looking for judges.
Okay.
So
Yeah. Well, the just since we're on the subject, I remember the first few years we did it. You know, there was a lot of teen suicide things, not the
yeah.
actual suicide.
you mean addiction problems?
Thought, well, I don't know, it was addiction or whatever, but it was, that's a typical subject
Right.
for people that age,
Mhm.
you know, because
Yeah.
the older you get in life, the more hope there is
Right.
about things do work out. But when you're 15 or 16,
Yeah.
you know, it's
Mhm.
like the end of times
Yeah.
if you get a bad bump. So,
Yeah.
Mm.
but I don't think I think they don't do that anymore. It's the people at the schools who run the program
Yeah.
tell them not to do that.
So now I have a question. You recently got married,
Yeah.
and your wife is she a partner in crime with you, or is she just an assist?
You know, she does assist me. I'm trying to train her to do more weddings with me. She's helped me on a few photo shoots. She's been to a few weddings, trying to teach her the ins and outs. But yeah, I think if I can train her to, because I always work alone when I never hire anybody, so it's always nice to have a second hand.
Yeah.
So we're still working on our exposing the
So
images. Yeah, we're
So
gonna
she's
get that.
picking up on it. You
She's
think?
picking up on it. Yeah.
And
Nice.
what is her profession?
She's a nanny.
No.
Yes, she's a nanny.
Oh, this means you might have kids soon.
You know, it's you know, we're gonna see in the future. And if you know anybody that is looking for a nanny, you know, give me a call. She's the best in the business.
I'm sure.
Yep.
I'm sure.
Yeah. Wow. Okay, so all of you parents out there, if you need a nanny, Zach is not your guy. But what's your wife's name?
Fernanda.
Fernanda?
Yes.
Fernanda.
Yes.
Oh,
Spanish.
sounds like Spanish.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
So it's wonderful. So you're happily married and very happy and satisfied with your professional career at this time, and you're looking forward to bigger and better things in the documentary series.
Mm-hmm.
Hopefully, something to do with nature conservation and wild things.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Is that a good summation?
I think that pretty much sums up where we're going.
Yeah,
in
that's
life.
good.
Yeah.
That's good. So we have about 10 minutes left of the show. So what I'm thinking is that maybe you could show some examples of your work.
Okay.
This is the viewpoint seen by many of the 26,000 marathon runners who are approaching the finish line.
Dakota and I were tasked with, for the safety of the runners, and providing a presence of a police dog and handler. Dakota and I were notified to respond to Watertown and help out with the manhunt. We responded to that scene, established a perimeter, and subsequently, the last Tsarnaev brother was taken into custody inside that boat.
Over a very short time, and maybe even over an instant, that a dog is living a normal life, doing something, there is a cataclysmic event, or sometimes 2 or 3 in short order. Yes, this is PTSD.
I had no idea about his background. I had no idea about him other than the fact that he'd had 27 takedowns in his career and that he'd had over 500 drug detections. I see him staring at me. He didn't bark. He didn't make a sound. I'll never forget the look in his eyes. Just help me.
My name's Austin Coles. I'm a fly fishing guide up in Northern California, up in the lovely Sierra Mountains. My fly fishing outfit's called Bearded Trout. It kind of just fits my personality, my style and everything, kind of, you know, off the grid and everything. People with beards, you know, a little bit rougher around the edges. As Bearded Trout, I'm an independent guide through California. I have a guide license, a bond, insurance, everything you need to be an independent guide. So up here in Northern California, up in the Sierra Mountains, we've got, it's pretty gorgeous up here. We got still snow in the mountains. I don't know if we can see any up here right now where we are, but sunny, bluebird days, then we get something close to about 300 sunny days. People always ask, hey, can we bring our dog? Is that cool? I'm 100% cool with it as long as your dog isn't gonna run off. As you can see, this is Mr. Oakley. He's super stoked to be out in the outdoors. He loves fishing. Super friendly dog. Bring that fly rod up. Yep. Nice, beautiful. Nice, there you go. That looks a lot better. Do an upstream bend, so pick it up, set it down, and then follow that indicator. You know, it doesn't even have to be about catching the fish, but if someone learns something and they're super stoked and you see them smile and you're like, hey, you know, that's a good day for me. That's what I really get passionate and pretty excited about teaching people. It's fun to just show people and teach people how to fish and just enjoy the outdoors. You know, it's not only about the guiding and landing fish, it's getting people to, hey, look, you know, there's a bald eagle, or hey, that's, you know, these are different types of birds, or, you know, this is a different type of tree. And this is a gorgeous place to be, you know, fishing and hanging out, learning new stuff. And that's why I'm super passionate about fly fishing too, is this is kind of my office, I guess. This is where we work, and this is where we do everything. So come on up to the Sierra Mountains. It's gorgeous up here.
My name is Anderson Gray, and I'm the founder of Anderson Gray & Company, and I craft heirloom quality canvas and leather goods that continue the maritime tradition of the area and kind of have that sailmaker flair also. My favorite part of the process is finding the inspiration for the design themselves. So I love taking that story of that place, you know, whether it's the New Bedford waterfront or the Maine coast or the Western Mass Berkshires, like learning about that history and that story, some heritage or tradition that I hold dear, and then transforming that into a wearable, functional product. It's so important to me in my own life to be as environmentally responsible as possible. And when I'm creating new goods, I want to have that in mind. So it's convenient for me because using natural materials is the way it was back in the day. So I can take that aspect of my brand and tie it into, for example, this New Bedford line with the heavy duck canvas, right? This is like exactly what they used. Well, looking ahead, this is the first New Bedford line that I've been crafting, and in the next few years, I want to expand this theme of place-based, story-based, wearable, functional art to other New England locations, and then take greater American stories and heritages and kind of put them into collections of bags or other canvas and leather goods.
And also, Healing Dakota, you give us some information on how we can, you know, how we can contact. Is it on Roku now?
Yeah, Roku, Amazon, all those.
Yeah. Okay. Well, you got to give Adam that information so that our viewers can check it out.
Yeah. See your portfolio,
Yep.
sample of your work,
Yep.
and I think that might get you some potential business.
I like it.
So it's
I like it. That'd be great.
time well spent.
And right, and so we'll have your contact information too, so people can get in touch with you.
Okay.
And we thank you so very much, Zachary Levenson, for being our guest today and coming into the studio. No Zoom interviews, but in person.
Yeah, it's great.
And Bill and I love that. We love to sit there and look and talk,
Same.
and I think our guests like it too.
Same.
It's fun. Well, if you invested heart and soul and mind and treasure into your career, it's fun occasionally to sit back and reflect on it, and
That's right.
talk about it. So it shows.
That's
Most
right.
of our guests.
So we thank the audience for watching, and until next time, this is Priscilla Almquist Olsen and
Bill Ames.
And we wish you well.
Awesome. Thanks for having me.
And thank you so much, Zachary Levenson, for joining us. Take care.
Thumbs
Until
up.
next time, be well.
Thank you.